You're listening to The Streaming Wars, the podcast that discusses all of the latest happenings regarding your favorite streaming services. Find out which service is winning the war this time around.
Hello everyone and welcome to the latest episode of The Streaming Wars. I'm Dustin and Tony is with me and we are here to discuss everything from the last 2 weeks. And there is a bunch of numbers over the past 2 weeks, April 21st through May 4th. We have numbers for Netflix, Amazon, HBO Max, Peacock, Discovery Plus, and what's this? Even Imdb TV. We're going to we got numbers for them too. These are all official numbers. Remember, we said we weren't going to be talking about any random numbers that people mention or the random numbers that the analysts come up with. We're talking about official numbers that were released from these companies. We also have two little updates when it comes to sports deals, and we have a little bit of a discussion at the end talking about HBO Max ad supported, and we'll get into that when we get there. So let's start off with some numbers. So the first thing is Netflix. Of course, as I think a lot of people would have suspected this, but as it turned out, Netflix missed their Q1 subscriber targets. They specifically blamed COVID-19 as the main issue, but their financials are actually better than expected. So there's that. So the revenue was higher than expected, and the earnings per share were higher as well. Specifically talking about subscribers, that they're sitting at about 208 million global subscribers at the end of the first quarter of 2021, but they had predicted 210 million. And as we talked about last quarter, at the end of their last quarter, last time they gave numbers, we talked about how, they've hit a point where they've had such a huge surge when it comes to the number of subscribers over the last just 12 months that it is very unlikely that they're going to see large gains when it comes quarter to quarter at this point. The market is there's a lot more competition within the streaming market, so there's going to be that aspect of it. Then there's also the fact that in general there's not that many more people or many more households that they can penetrate that they already haven't. Not to say that there isn't, but the level of houses is not going to get a ton more subscribers individually every single quarter. They were hoping to add basically 10 million subscribers, and it just didn't happen.
Every time we talk about Netflix and their numbers, where they don't hit a certain earnings target, is 2 million subscribers. For a lot of streaming services, okay, that would be a big thing. But for Netflix, it's like, okay, 2 million, that could be a rounding error, I feel like when you see headlines like this, it's a little bit misleading. But for me, the metrics and the numbers that are really interesting were how they confirmed a key metric that it's actually on track to have a free cash flow, to basically break even this year on with the cash flow. And so they don't need any outside financing anymore to fund day-to-day business. So for a while, right, Netflix was spending so much money on content and so much money on, the tech side, servers, people, crap, and also creating different pieces of content everywhere else. Anyway, so they had this big spending push, and the way that they did that was they accrued debt. Some of it was, they got loans from the bank, but they also wrote like certain types of bonds, which were really interesting. So if you think about the U.S. government bonds or any other, countries, in the central bank writing bonds, you can do the same thing for, companies. And so Netflix did that, and that was for a while how they were able to raise so much money, pay for these types of efforts. But it's actually a pretty big thing that Netflix now can actually break even and pay for its day-to-day businesses and invest in the content that it's doing without, financing so much debt. So that's a huge thing for Netflix, and it's the sustainability of the company moving forward is that, they can actually break even. They're not just always piling on more debt and, trying to eventually get to the very end. So that's huge for Netflix there. And then, they also said that, Netflix, once again, the churn rate just keeps going down. So for a service that has 208 million subscribers in a time of, with COVID, there's economic uncertainty, at least in the United States. I can't say for certain everywhere else in the world, but a little bit of economic uncertainty. People are looking at their budgets and, trimming the fat there. They've been able to keep a whole, their churn rate's so low. It's so impressive. And there's been a lot of titles that have left, right? You have The Office and Parks and Rec. You've had different movies leave over the past couple of years. Like Disney's left, some Warner Brothers content has left Netflix. I know some DC content has left Netflix and gone to HBO Max. So overall, to me, that's another impressive thing is they've been able to keep the churn rate so low. So those are to me the two eye-popping numbers and statistics from this report. To me that really shows how solid of a company streaming service Netflix is. You look at the other streaming services, and each one has certain weaknesses and weak spots, and a lot of them are just these ventures by the main companies to fuel growth in one way or another. Where Netflix, you can really tell that they've understood the streaming business and they actually have a solid streaming plan and in an organization in a whole model around streaming. So overall, proud of Netflix. They're just the leaders and they do great stuff.
So a company that we typically don't hear a lot of numbers about is Amazon. Now, we hear overall how many subscribers have subscribed to Prime. That's something that they always tout. But one of the things they very rarely talk about, just like Apple, is because the company is so big and streaming is just a small aspect of their overall business, there just isn't that much to talk about when it comes to quarterly earnings. You rarely ever hear anything about Prime Video, or like I said with Apple, you rarely hear things about Apple TV Plus. It's just uncommon. However, Amazon last quarter, their revenue exploded and they actually had things to say. So they specifically said that compared to the previous year, the amount of streaming hours has risen 70% year over year. Now that is an insane jump. And that would also explain why Amazon has had absolutely no problem churning out money for some of these movies like Coming to America, which did very, very well for them. The Borat movie last year did very, very well for them. These movies, they're purchasing these from outside sources and bringing them into Amazon specifically to make sure that there is content available. They have huge productions already in place for Lord of the Rings. Wheel of Time is another project that's going to be real big. They have really big things. Obviously, they continue to have success with some of their current series like The Boys, which is very popular. They just had a Tom Clancy film that they got from Paramount called Without Remorse, starring Michael B. Jordan. They've got content. They don't have the amount of content to really compete with the likes of some of the major studios and even Netflix. So right now it's smart for them to find content, and they're buying content because they can afford it, because one, they're Amazon, and two, they obviously are seeing a lot more people using Prime as a whole. It's also worth pointing out that Imdb TV, which is essentially Amazon's ad-supported service, which kind of goes alongside, is a supplement to what they have with Prime Video. That one also blew up as well. They attribute the fact that Twitch, NFL, and IMDb have pushed the overall monthly users for Amazon as a whole from 20 million to 120 million. That's an insane number. And IMDb TV has their own set of originals. They've actually renewed a show that was previously, I believe, on TNT called Leverage. That just got announced. It's coming back in July. And they had Alex Rider. They have other content, but they're also purchasing other content, or licensing content that is available on IMDb TV. So between Twitch, NFL, IMDb TV, their streaming at Amazon is blowing up.
That is huge. I cannot believe the numbers that Amazon, Prime Video and the related to Twitch and IMDb TV, parts of the whole Amazon streaming, video streaming, just push. It's a whole lot. I mean, it's much higher than we thought. So we knew it had a lot of viewership, and use the word viewership because, right, Prime Video has subscribers, and then Twitch, and, IMDb TV. But we all knew that they had a whole lot of regular consumers, but I never thought it would be on the scale of Netflix. Like, yeah, they're 25 million short, but that's I don't know. Out of all the other streaming companies, I mean, it's probably the closest one. So overall, this is really huge for Amazon, and we've seen them double down and investing in sports, the new movies, like you said, signing deals with like Michael B. Jordan in his films, right? But they've definitely doubled down in terms of content and different types of content. So it is crazy to see where they are and where they have been and kind of where they are and where they're trying to push to. And before, right, I feel like Prime Video was an interesting side project for Prime, but it starts to feel like, and Dustin, I don't know if you have this feeling or not, but it starts to feel like the people behind the video streaming side have really kind of found their groove, and it's becoming one cohesive experience, and they're moving forward to a goal. It's not just like, hey, you want to rent something on Prime Video, right? Here's the movie, here you can go get it. Or this clunky interface of, yeah, we have stuff here, come visit, but we're not going to serve it to you in a decent way. And it starts to feel like there's a lot more cohesiveness in the whole entire Amazon streaming unit, and they're really moving towards a singular goal with all the different platforms.
I absolutely agree. I think that when it comes to Amazon, 2020 was the year for Prime Video to really have a significant shift. Not just obviously in the number of users, but just everything in general. 2020 was the year that Amazon finally has profiles to keep kids' content separate from adult content. They also, they added a lot more content when it comes with the ad supported with Imdb TV. They have made a bunch of NFL deals to ensure that they have sports going forward, and that's on top of already existing sports deals that they had in place with other things like Premier League and things like that. So they have definitely realized that this is a profitable market, and that is why they are making sure that they're putting more effort into it. I think for a long time, Amazon has a very specific focus. Amazon is such a large company that their cloud-based services and things like that is really where a lot of the profit for the company is. But I think that when it comes to other elements of the business, the cloud services is something very specific that makes them a lot of money, but a lot of their business is, logistics and getting, a piece of something to a customer, and whether that be a package or whether that be something digital, they want to be the one-stop shop for consumers, and they really need Prime Video to accentuate the ability of that Prime membership, and it does a great job. And I honestly believe that as time progresses, the Prime membership will increase in price because of what they offer, and a lot of that's going to be attributed to the fact of, well, if you're subscribing to Netflix and you're paying, let's just say on average $10 a month for Netflix, right now you're only paying an extra couple dollars on top of that for the exact same content with Prime Video, plus you get the free shipping from Amazon or next day shipping or however it works, where depending on your market. But I think that Prime Video is really a way to really get the customers to subscribe to Prime, which leads them to shop on Amazon more often, which obviously helps Amazon profit more from those individual customers. So I think they've realized it, and 2020 was the way to really do that because those numbers have shot up as much as they have. All right, so then jumping over to HBO Max. HBO Max, they also increased their numbers. They have added, specifically, we have to, of course, say this, HBO and HBO Max have added 2.7 million subscribers within quarter one. In quarter one, Godzilla vs. Kong was their largest viewing experience that they mentioned. Specifically, in the past, AT&T has reported the number of activations, talking about how many HBO customers have turned on their streaming subscriptions to HBO Max because of an existing HBO subscription they already have. Now they have said that they are planning to promote a combined number each quarter, which is in line with the goals that they have already set out for HBO Max. Specifically, their goal that they have 120 to 150 million global subscribers by 2025. As of right now, their global reach is 63.9 million subscribers. That includes obviously all of HBO Max and HBO subscriptions. But it appears that activation thing, as we've stated before, it can get confusing as far as, what exactly it is, the difference between an activation. And I think some of that it gets a little confusing when you say you've got 18 million activations, but you have 44 million subscribers. And the question is, well, how, where's the disconnect? How do you get that? And honestly, for them as a company, it doesn't do them any good to constantly talk about how half of the current HBO subscriber base is actually using HBO Max. That doesn't help them in the long run. So that's why they're doing it. But the important information is that they've increased 2.7 million subscribers in one quarter. A lot of that was attributed to the movies it released in the first quarter, specifically, like I said, Godzilla vs. Kong, but there was also Tom and Jerry, Judas and the Black Messiah. There's a lot of more movies coming, and they're attributing a lot of the success that they've had to those films.
I'm glad they got rid of this whole activation thing. It made sense, but it was hard to like, I understand it, you understand it, right, Dustin? But I've tried to explain it to other people, and it just kind of got really messy. So I'm glad that they just report the combined numbers. To be honest, I don't understand why they just don't. If HBO people can get HBO Max for free, then why don't they just convert everything to HBO Max and call it a day? But that's a question that won't be answered today on the show. But I don't think anybody would have expected that HBO Max would not have grown. Just partly because, right, people are really getting into streaming services, and every streaming service is probably going to have some type of growth, unless you're Netflix, where you're so huge that it's probably really hard. You kind of hit a ceiling there. But for all these other, streaming services, I would just assume that they would grow. And I would assume that they would definitely grow with them releasing the movies, with that decision of, okay, we're going to release stuff simultaneously, theatrical versions and on HBO Max, just for a given window, right? But those have been really big hits. Judas and the Black Messiah, man, that was really good, and I think it definitely got a lot of acclaim from like the award side of things. Godzilla versus Kong. I mean, come on, those are huge. That's a dinosaur fighting the monkey. Right, Dustin? Like, that's going to get everybody involved. And it was just a fun film. Zack Snyder's Justice League. It was a big thing. It was a big draw. It was a big promotional thing by HBO Max, and then he just had Mortal Kombat. That for the people who love the games, there's that movie out, and they're continually to release new content. And for me, like, it's been a fun thing of every Friday night, like, seeing, okay, what new thing is out on HBO Max. And yeah, they release new TV shows. I want to check out the show called The Nevers, and that releases, weekly, and I've been trying to wait till there's a lot of episodes there. But you get the TV side of things, of they're dropping new shows on that end, and they're also dropping new theatrical movies. I've really enjoyed it. And they're movies that I will probably go to the theaters anyway and go see. But it's been nice to just have a chilling night with my wife and just, watching a movie there. So I think that they made the right decision, and it's going to be reflected in their numbers. Definitely, probably going to see even a bigger jump in probably Q2, because a lot of these films probably came toward the end of Q1, and all the statistics probably haven't been compiled correctly for those yet. But that was a really huge move, and I think we're going to see the numbers moving forward reflect how important of a decision that is to differentiate HBO Max from the rest of the competition.
All right, so next up is Peacock. Their numbers, of course, we have to go off of a different number. Instead of seeing how many paying subscribers they have, their number reflects how many signups. So these are specifically people who have given Peacock their email address, because that's how you access even the free content. Now, keep in mind the 42 million signups. That includes the wide variety of the free tier, the people who subscribe just and they're not paying anything. That also includes all of the people who currently have Comcast services that allow them to get Peacock for free. Just as the same thing as with HBO Max. HBO Max, there's certain aspects of AT&T within the company that allow customers to have HBO Max for free. But what Peacock gives when they talk about their numbers is the number of people who have actually signed up to use this service, which does not necessarily reflect how many people are actively using this service, and it does not always actively represent how many people are actually paying for the service, because they don't give a breakdown of that. However, they have gotten 42 million signups in the first quarter, and they attribute that to the fact that The Office is now on Peacock, as well as the addition of the WWE Network that kind of got molded into Peacock as well. Those are great numbers. There's nothing bad there. They specifically point out that they're off to a great start in 2021. When they talk about the number of people, they had 33 million as of 3 months ago, so now they're up to 42 million. So they've increased, just in the 3 months, they've increased 9 million signups, which is great for them.
I mean, kind of like my position in HBO Max, I would have assumed that Peacock would have grown. They do have good content. I've been really diving into the service recently, but I think when you have the way how Peacock is, you have to put down your email, and you can either do the different like premium or premium plus, or just the ad-free tiers, right? You have those three different things. For the ad-free tier, all it just requires is your email address. So that's just a unique identifier for Peacock to then just send you targeted advertisements. But that's not the point of this show. That's just the unique identifier that they have. From one sense, I get how they use the 42 million signups with just the email addresses as a to compute this aggregate number, right, of the 42 million people who use it. But you're right, it is misleading, because you could just sign up for the service on the ad-free tier, realize you can't watch anything that you want,
and your number still counts.
Yeah, I still got opinionated positions on Peacock, but right? And your number still counts, even if you just have that signed up, right? Your email is just sitting in a database, and it's still going to be, counted. So good point, Dustin, of pointing out that, 42 million does not necessarily equate to actually 42 million people or 42 million accounts actually being activated and using it on a semi-regular basis. So that's a good point.
All right, so then jumping over to Discovery for our last set of numbers, Discovery has stated that over their entire streaming portfolio, which is obviously led by Discovery Plus, they have racked up 15 million paying subscribers, 2 million of which were in April alone. Now, to break this specifically down, this is, of course, all of the streaming content that they offer. Most of their channels, HGTV, Food Network, Discovery, a lot of these have premium version apps that allow you to subscribe to them individually, so that way you can access content. Discovery Go, these are options that are out there that basically allow you to access the content without a paid cable subscription. It's the same content that you would get if you had a cable subscription, but allows you to have that. They had 5 million subscribers in December prior to them actually launching the service. Then over the course of Discovery Plus launching, and then of course leading on, they have gained 10 million subscribers. So they have a total of 15 million across all of their platforms, but you would assume that the vast majority of those subscribers are going to be Discovery Plus. They did state that in April alone they added 2 million, which I'm not sure why they needed to throw that tidbit in there. The point here is they've got good numbers. There's nothing to squawk at about this. It is important to point out that these are paying subscribers, and Discovery Plus does have an ad-supported option that you can watch content, and they claim that their ARPU from those customers who are using the ad-supported is well over $10, which is really great for them when it comes to the cost that they're making per user. So there's that as well. So Discovery, while they didn't give specific numbers specifically for Discovery Plus, it is a successful endeavor for them at this point in time, and they have yet to go international.
I love this news article because a few episodes ago, one of the listeners asked, okay, what's your streaming service that you think is going to win 2021? And just reading this makes me happy because my dark horse candidate was Discovery Plus, and I'm just rooting for them just to be proven right. Overall, once again, Discovery is going to follow the trend of streaming services growing. Discovery Plus's content, and I'm just going to use Discovery Plus. I know it's the flagship streaming product, but it's just easier just to say that. The content on Discovery Plus is the type of content that you could just, put on and just do your work, right? In the article, it says that for the active users spend about 3.5 hours on, the streaming service, which is a lot. That's really impressive. And to me, it kind of goes into the fact of what you and I've discussed multiple times of streaming services need to have that type of content that you can just do work or do housework or just have it in the background and you can do other things. That's kind of why The Office is so huge. Like, yes, it's a bingeable type of content, but it is also the type of content that you can just put it on the background and do your work. And I'm using The Office just because I was just doing that before this show. But Discovery Plus has that type of content. I think that's why that they're going to be one of the winners of 2021. Another thing to note, though, is yes, Discovery Plus and all the Discovery streaming side of things has grown in terms of numbers. Since there is an ad component to all of this, they found that with ad revenue actually being decreased, that they actually lost a little bit of money, this last quarter. So just due to how advertising has been, it's really not been a good time for streaming services. They're just really dependent on ad revenue, just because advertisers are just not paying much for ad slots. So I think that's one thing that we have to keep in mind as we talk about streaming services, and I think COVID's kind of brought that now, because before COVID, everybody had you had ad tiers, and then you had the subscription tier, and no one really talked about, okay, what happens if the ads kind of go away, the ad revenue falls. There's other streaming services that we've talked about and that we will talk about who are having these issues of, okay, they have this ad component, which allows them to have a lower, either could be ad free. You don't have to pay a subscription, you have the ad, or you have to pay like a smaller subscription fee and you still have ads, right? But the ad part of things are not going to make up for, the guaranteed revenue you would get from a normal subscription. So you're going to see companies going to struggle with this a little bit. Hopefully it's just a minor issue of, okay, 1 to 2 quarters, weird trend that's happening, or it could be, heaven forbid, it's a trend that's going to happen more than at most 2 quarters, because that's really going to put pressure on the industry of, okay, lots of people complain about subscriptions, and they want, free content, right? Free is always better, but forcing people to sit through ads, and if you're not generating the type of income, then, you're kind of screwed. So that's one thing to note of this report of Discovery Plus is of the decline in ad revenue and how that can affect the service moving forward.
All right, so then moving into some sports things. I know sports streaming, it's like another week, another sports deal. Yeah, so first things first, Amazon, their Thursday Night Football streaming deal with the NFL will actually start a year earlier than expected. The deal will extend through 2032, but it was supposed to start in 2023, but as announced just a couple of days ago, it is going to actually occur where now the agreement is an 11-year agreement, and they will exclusively carry Thursday Night Football games starting in the 2022 season instead of the 2023 season. So you'll be able to see all those games on the streaming service on Prime Video. So that's going to be happening. So that's happening. The other big news when it comes to sports is that Warner Media has landed some NHL deals, and when those deals were revealed, there was a little bit of a tidbit in there that stated that the games could be aired on TNT, TBS, and HBO Max. And now, while there is absolutely no immediate plans to have games from the NHL on HBO Max, we do know that based off of at least their initial announcements with HBO Max, they had every intention of, once they went global and had the ad-supported model, their next one was to have live events, including sports, as part of the HBO Max streaming service. Now, they have said over time that those plans have changed, but there's no reason that would have been inside that deal unless there was something planned. Jeff Zucker, who is the chairman of Warner Media News and Sports, specifically stated, while they have that ability and in the future they may use it, they are purposely saying that they're excited about what it could mean, but they have no immediate plans right now to have games on HBO Max. There was another interview that was done with Andy Forsell, who is over at Warner Brothers too, and he specifically said that he was asked a question about the 7-year deal for NHL rights, and HBO Max is one of the platforms that is allowed to carry the games. But Jeff Zucker has said that they won't be airing games the first season and they will phase in over time. Why do you think it's important to have this? And he said they're experimenting with live streaming, but for the most part, they have been, gearing everything that they've been doing towards long form entertainment, and they're trying to figure out the best way to do it. But the hockey rights is something that's going to immediately allow them to experiment with live streaming on the service itself. It's also interesting because if you remember, I think this was last fall, we talked about how there was new deals in place with Turner Sports for MLB games, and the question was, they had mentioned in their deal that there was streaming rights available, but did not specifically name drop HBO Max. And at the time, it was the same question. Well, when could sports come? And I think what's happening, in my opinion, is that when it comes to Turner Sports, specifically Warner Media News and Sports and things like that, they are renewing their deals when it comes to making sure that the cable stations have the sports content that they previously had, and they're making sure that for the future, they have the ability to implement that into HBO Max if they choose to. But for right now, their focus is on just securing the rights for the future and then getting the ad supported and rolling out globally, and then working on the sports rights, down the line. I honestly, like we've said multiple times, it's only a matter of time before some sort of live element comes to the service, whether it be, honestly, it'll probably be sports first, but I assume at some point we'll see some sort of news too, just because Warner Media has that news portfolio with CNN, among other aspects of their news portfolio that will add value to HBO Max and allow them to potentially get even more subscribers. There's people out there, and I'm honestly one of those people. I don't have a huge desire for live television. I don't watch a lot of live news. I don't watch a lot of live sports, but I will say that if there was live news on HBO Max in some capacity, I would probably be more inclined to watch that rather than subscribing to a whole new live television option, which is very, very much more expensive than a typical streaming service to get something that's very similar. So I think it's only a matter of time. Eventually there could be tiers. The ad-supported tier could be the first tier, the standard tier that they launched with last year in May could be the middle tier, and there could be an additional tier that would allow you to have sports and other live elements added on, but in a limited capacity. I'm not talking about doing something like Hulu Live or YouTube TV where you've got all kinds of stuff and they've got to deal with carriage deals and things like that. It's exclusively content that is from their own portfolio that they have, or they have licensing deals in place to have that content on the service for a nominal upcharge, potentially $20 rather than the $15. So there's that. When it comes to our final discussion, we're going to talk about HBO Max's ad-supported. There's been some news, specifically there's been some news talking about what the price will actually be. When it comes to what they're planning on doing, there's a report out of CNBC talking about how the price point is geared towards $9.99 per month for the ad-supported version of HBO Max. It will, as we already knew, because this was mentioned before, that ad-supported tier will not include the theatrical releases that are being released in the month or in the year of 2021. But there's a couple different elements here that I want to kind of hypothesize about between Tony and myself, which is the price point $9.99. I don't think that's far off. Honestly, it probably will end up being that, but it's more about what will it include. They've already said about what the movies will not be included in that price point and they will not be available, but there's been a lot of talk about whether or not the ad-supported version will actually include certain elements of everything. Will it include everything that's available on HBO Max outside of the movies, because we've already heard that. I'm specifically talking about the theatrical day and release movies. I am not talking about the large library of content that they have. So there's a couple of different things that could be included or could not. One of the things that has been said is that HBO original content, which is typically all ad-free because it's on HBO, would still be included in that $9.99 price point, but not have ads because it is HBO content. However, the HBO Max originals, the library content, that stuff could all have ads support. They could all implement ads into that for that ad supported tier. So I want to get your take on what you think could end up being the ad supported. They state that they're going to announce the ad supported tier and all the details by the end of the month. And I suspect that it might be after our next episode, but just in case it's not, I wanted to talk about it here. So what do you think the ad supported, the big difference between the ad supported tier and the normal tier is going to be outside of obviously cost and ads? Do you think there'll be anything else that'll be a major change?
I love how you said besides cost and ads.
Yeah.
There's going to be ads in the ad supported tier. No, I think the theatrical, it's already been reported, right? The theatrical window, the movies in the theatrical window. So, right, Godzilla vs. Kong, right? That's still in theaters. It's already been reported that's not going to happen. With ads, right? We're going to have some ads. From what I heard, that HBO Max wants to make them not intrusive, which everybody says that about ads, but then they eventually get obtrusive because of trying to get impressions, added impressions, but that's not the point. Dustin, what I could really see is, and it's not really entailing all the things that Warner Media could do, I could see them, and I think it's going to be a big sticking point, is kind of like Peacock. You're going to have this ad-supported tier where it claims that you can get everything on HBO, but there's going to be some things that are excluded. So I can see the bigger ones, like Game of Thrones. Huge show. I could see that not being on the ad tier. I can see some new HBO shows, once again using Game of Thrones, the new prequel series that's going to come out. I can see super quote unquote valuable content to Warner Media on the HBO side that's being produced will not be on the ad supported tier, which I think is going to cause a ruckus. To think about it, in Peacock, yes, The Office is on there, but for the ad-supported tier, you can only watch the first 2 seasons, which is extremely frustrating. You have to get the premium version, even if it does have ads, to watch the whole entire show. Same thing with Modern Family and Superstore and Brooklyn Nine-Nine, right? All those shows. There's certain ones for free, and then you have to do the premium subscription. And that's really frustrating. And I think that I have a feeling that's what they're going to do, and you're going to see a backlash by people. Because, right, I'm okay with the price point because I understand the high-quality amount of content that is on HBO Max, and that's regularly coming to HBO Max. And now that they've done the theatrical window thing, it's definitely worth it, But you have a lot of people who complain about the, $15 a month, and they have valid concerns, right? So you drop it down $5, right? $10 a month, and you have ads, and you can't watch some of the most important content, some of the most well-respected content in all of, media. I could see Warner Media holding that type of content back, and you're going to have people on the internet just complain. and rip them to shreds. I'm not saying that's like the chatter that I've heard or the news reports that I've seen, but I just have a suspicion that that's the road that they're going to go down, and I'm really concerned that's the case.
Personally, I think that you're not too far off. I think that there could potentially be certain content that is excluded, but it'll be confusing as to what, because what would it be without HBO launching something, or HBO Max or Warner Media launching something, and there not be some sort of confusion associated with this, a new element? Because I mean, that's certainly what happened with HBO Max and HBO Go and HBO Now when it first launched last May. And I hope that it doesn't happen, but who's to say it won't? My only hope is that the ad-supported actually brings in a large number of subscribers, and then we get more content. There's a lot of content that has already been announced. It's been over a year since they initially announced a ton of content that was planned for the service, and obviously COVID delayed a lot of that stuff. And I'm hoping that there's even more content and there's more stuff that comes. There's lots of rumors of different potential content. You know, obviously we've heard about a Harry Potter show. There's other DC content that could end up on the service as well. But I'm hoping that the subscriber base grows to a sizable number where they can actually start putting together some really, really big projects for the service itself. So there's that. To wrap up our episode, we have a listener comment that specifically has asked us to rank a specific group of services. Now, I'm not going to go into details on why I'm ranking these. I'll just say this is my rank. The companies they asked us to rank include Netflix, Disney Plus, Hulu, Amazon Prime Video, and HBO Max. And they said, if you could rank them, what would you rank them in? And so we're just going based off of desire of usage, I guess, is what we'll go off of, or which one we like the best. Personally, HBO Max is at the top for me. I watch probably more content on HBO Max than any of the other services that I subscribe to. When it comes to Netflix is second for me because I use that probably second to HBO Max. Disney Plus has a lot of really cool content, exclusive content that I do check out, like Falcon Winter Soldier or WandaVision or Mandalorian. These are content that I seek out.
Or you have kids.
Or I have kids, but it's not content. I don't typically go to the service specifically looking for that unless it is some of that exclusive content. Now, obviously, my kids will watch it, so there's that. Between Hulu and Prime Video, it's kind of a toss-up. Prime Video, I think, has a little bit more exclusives, and they have a little bit better selection of content that I've watched. That's not to say that Hulu is that far off. I actually have watched probably Hulu a little bit more often recently compared to Amazon Prime Video, but I think if I had to put it, I'd probably put Hulu just a little bit higher than Prime Video just because of what the content they have right now, but I drastically think that could change, and Prime Video could even probably surpass Disney Plus once they get to The Lord of the Rings and The Wheel of Time and some of these other large projects that they have already in production.
So my ranking, HBO Max is number one. I think we both just love that service and all that type of content. I'm ranking Prime as second. However, in Prime, I'm also including Imdb TV. I feel like Prime Video, there's a lot of hidden gems there, and it's kind of lost by some of the user interface and the fact that they do not promote themselves as much as some of these other streaming services in terms of like what type of content that they have. And I found a whole lot of really good hidden gems on Prime. And then Imdb TV, there have been a lot of TV shows I really enjoyed, like Fringe, White Collar, Suits, Burn Notice. I'm going to start that one. So I really enjoyed that. Third will be Netflix, and it's actually impressive that they're third. I don't have Netflix currently. When I did have Netflix, I really enjoyed it. And even though they do not have the types of shows, the shows and the movies that they had then, with knowing the content that I know that's on Netflix, they would be my third ranked anyway. Disney Plus is 4. It's a great way for my kid. For me, yes, right. All the Star Wars shows the Star Wars show, the Marvel content, I've really enjoyed that. It's definitely gone up in terms of ratings due to them actually launching content this year, in terms of WandaVision, and then Falcon Winter Soldier, Loki's coming up next, right? They're my fourth. Hulu is my fifth. Nothing against Hulu. Like, once again, all these streaming services that are listed, I really do enjoy, and I feel like ranking them kind of gives them a disservice. Hulu, they have good content. I just gave up the service just because I didn't give up something. And I could find some of the other content on the different streaming services. So that's why they're 5. I really do enjoy it. They have a really great experience. FX content, That's some good content that I feel like people do not give enough respect to. So overall, these are 5 great services, and ranking them really is just really hard.
Yeah, let me just chime in and say that the FX content on Hulu, do not sleep on that. There is some amazing stuff, and that's actually why I had it just a little bit higher than Prime Video, is because there's FX content that I've watched that is really, really good, and there's just not that level of content or the bulk of that amount of content that is available on Amazon Prime Video at this immediate moment. So that's one of the reasons, and it's a disservice not to mention the FX content. And if you haven't checked it out and you have Hulu, you're doing yourself a disservice. Go check out that content. It's great stuff, right on par with any of the other premium channels like HBO content, Showtime content. It's great stuff.
I just want to chime in one last thing on the FX content. Like, people talk about the Fox merger, right? The Disney Fox merger for many different reasons, right? And bolster Disney Plus, comic people, getting the rights back to certain characters that they could do in films. But for me, the most hidden gem is getting the FX library and then putting all that content on Hulu. Really bootstraps Hulu to be, in terms of content wise, having one of the best content libraries out there. And so I just wanted to pile on the praise of Hulu and the FX content, just because I think that's the biggest hidden gem in the whole Disney Fox merger, is the library of FX content, and how Disney and Hulu are able to capitalize on that. It's great.
All right, so with that being said, that is going to wrap up this episode of the Streaming Wars. I want to encourage everybody to check out the show notes, which can be found over on our website, thestreamingwars.io, for all the articles that we talked about here, and then a ton of other content specifically related to anything else within the streaming universe when it comes to entertainment, tech, and business news. All of those articles can be found in our show notes. And we also post those on Twitter and our Discord, so you can follow along as the Streaming Wars continue on. You can also follow us on Instagram for all the latest announcements related to new episodes of the podcast posting. You can send us an email at thestreamingwars@gmail.com with any questions, comments, concerns, or feedback, or things you'd like us to discuss on future episodes. That is always greatly appreciated. If you are interested in checking out all of the trailers that are constantly releasing, there's tons of trailers, be sure to check out our YouTube channel, where we have playlists in place for all of the streaming services, and playlists that include all of the latest trailers from those various different streaming services, so be sure to check out that on our YouTube channel. With all of that being said, for Tony and myself, this has been the Streaming Wars, and we'll see you guys next time.
Thanks for listening to the Streaming Wars. Check us out on Twitter and Instagram. Also, consider supporting us on Patreon. Links can be found at thestreamingwars.io.